This presentation may include images, voices, or names of those who have died. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are gathered today and pay my respect to their elders past and present. We acknowledge their ongoing connection to this land, its waterways and skies. Sovereignty was never ceded. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Today we're looking at the disparities between non-Indigenous and Indigenous peoples' emotional and social health within Australia. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have faced many ongoing challenges due to social, cultural, and historical factors which have impacted their health over time. For many Indigenous cultures, health isn't just physical, and it's deeply connected to the land, culture, spirituality, community, and identity, showing their holistic views on health, which includes emotional and social. We focused on the Balit Durn Centre, which is an Indigenous-led organisation which focuses on supporting Indigenous peoples with their emotional and social health and well-being. Social health is the ability to form and maintain connections with others and includes determinants like housing, education, employment, and access to health services. Emotional health is the ability to recognise, understand, and effectively manage and express emotions and plays a large role in being resilient. Together, these influence connection to country, family, kinship, and community, beliefs and knowledge, cultural expression, and continuity in language. These are important issues to address as it has been shown that 3 in 10 Indigenous peoples aged 18 and over experience high to very high levels of psychological distress, which is over double that of non-Indigenous, and this statistic has stayed consistent since the 2018 to 2019 data. We know it is crucial to address social and emotional well-being in everyone to improve quality of life, but these statistics show that it is even more important to address it within Indigenous communities to address the health inequalities. By improving emotional and social health and well-being, improvements are made across closing the life expectancy gap, education, and employment outcomes for Indigenous peoples.
Today, Indigenous Australians experience disproportionate levels of psychological distress. But before colonisation, it was a very different story. While there were some records of severe mental illness, they were generally considered rare. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures contributed to higher quality of social and emotional well-being. Holistic health practices focus on balancing the physical and spiritual self, and an individual's sense of self was collective, which meant their identity was connected to their community, culture, and societal roles, which provided a sense of purpose and belonging that is often absent today. Their strong social support networks, healthy lifestyles, and learned coping mechanisms created more protective factors for well-being. The British arrived in 1788, then moved survivors into missions and forced them to survive in unsustainable environments. Assimilation policies in 1937 from the Commonwealth government separated Aboriginal peoples who were not full-blood from their communities to be absorbed and eventually disappear into the wider population, and they attempted to fully erase First Nations culture and knowledge. Thousands of children known as the Stolen Generations were forcibly removed from their families to be adopted or raised in institutions, leading to many adverse childhood experiences and psychological distress. They experienced social exclusion, racism, abuse, and poverty at the hands of colonists, and these adverse experiences, grief, and trauma have long-lasting impacts that can affect several generations. It wasn't until 1967 that First Nations peoples were granted the right of citizenship, 1972 the right of self-determination, and 1975 the right of self-management. Official reconciliation started in 1991 with the establishment of the Council for Aboriginal Reconciliation. And in 1995, the Ways Forward document about First Nations mental health influenced policymaking and introduced better knowledge on social and emotional well-being and holistic healthcare. Some influences can be seen in the current National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Health Plan, which includes social and emotional well-being and has been revamped to address national reforms and increase collaboration with First Nations peoples. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples still experience far higher levels of mental ill health and psychological distress, but we are now in a position to better understand and address these disparities.
The disparity in health between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples has numerous contributing factors, such as colonization and assimilation policies, of which the impacts are still present today. Colonization has greatly upended the natural order and living of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples' culture. The involuntary removal of First Nations children from their respective families and communities has led to the ongoing loss of cultural identity and intergenerational trauma that is experienced by First Nations individuals. Consequently, these factors account for the significant disparities to social and emotional health and well-being between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. The forceful acquisition of lands and ethnic cleansing has contributed to a great sense of alienation and disconnect within Indigenous communities, creating a loss of security and sense of belonging within Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. This concept of belonging is crucial to satisfying happiness, both social and emotional health and well-being, as well as longevity, as it provides a sense of purpose, meaning, and even connection to one's roots and cultural heritage for Indigenous individuals. Evidence through extensive research a loss of belonging and connection to land has been associated with greater levels of stress, illness, and poorer well-being, as well as being linked to depression. Therefore, it is essential that health practitioners recognize the significance of country, culture, and connection to land and ancestral heritage for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and to understand that when these domains become breached or upended, that culturally appropriate intervention is required to acknowledge and aid the repercussions faced to Indigenous emotional and social health and well-being. As a result, this leads to our program, which is the Balit Centre, which acknowledges and recognizes that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders' social and emotional well-being is a complex, multidimensional concept encompassing connections to land, culture, spirituality, ancestry, family, and community, and that the Aboriginal concept of healing varies vastly from the physical aspects of contemporary medicine that enables mental health and well-being to be recognized as part of a holistic and interconnected Aboriginal view of health. The term Balit translates in English to strong brain, mind, intellect, and sense of self. The centre was established with the vision to embed the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander well-being model within the mental health sector, and to ensure that services are culturally safe and that Aboriginal people have access to support which will assist in their healing and recovery. Their purpose is to provide Aboriginal leadership to provide an evidence-based and Aboriginal-led and advocated social and emotional well-being reform in Victoria and to empower the workforce, both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal, through training, tools, and promising practice to enhance knowledge and practice of methods that embed the elements of social and emotional well-being. Whilst collaborating with Aboriginal communities, ATROs, other Aboriginal stakeholders, mainstream providers, and governments to ensure that all services are working towards providing culturally safe social and emotional well-being services.
For a program to be effective, it must be Aboriginal-led and promote self-determination. When creating programs, Aboriginal peoples must be responsible for making the decisions regarding their health, as it guarantees that it will reflect their community needs, cultural values, and holistic views of health. Conducting consultations with target communities to recognize local cultural knowledge and listen and discuss ideas allows them to feel a sense of engagement, therefore making the program more likely to work. Consistent and long-term funding, planning, and staff support are important for the effectiveness of programs as they build trust, avoid instability. To achieve effectiveness, a program must acknowledge both historical and structural factors and current needs that affect communities. According to the World Health Organization, social health stem from institutional inequalities, not problems or family deficits. For an effective programs, funders, providers, and recipients of services must build genuine and respectful relationships through either formal and written agreements or informal agreements to ensure Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples are actively involved in the decision making and delivery. These all ensure that programs are culturally appropriate for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. However, what does not work in programs is the one size fits all approach. This occurs when governments ignore the diverse needs of Indigenous communities and undermine the culturally appropriate strategies that make the programs effective. The lack of genuine collaborations with Indigenous communities also make a program ineffective, as they need to be locally connected and accepted. Making changes to the services without consulting the Indigenous communities causes resentment and reduces the program's effectiveness. Programs without local Indigenous control and culturally appropriate modifications are unlikely to succeed as they aren't tailored to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. Indigenous services often fail because of short-term and poorly resourced interventions that are unable to deal with identified problems, or they do not operate long enough to make a difference. Without adequate planning, support, and local skills development, the delivery of any service will be weakened.
Aboriginal controlled health services deliver around 3 million care visits every year, helping about 350,000 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. In researching what works and what doesn't, we can identify the key factors that make the Balit Durn program successful. Referring to this diagram, several key points have contributed to its effectiveness. Firstly, accessibility is a major strength. Aboriginal peoples can easily access the centre, which operates from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Additionally, the program ensures availability through multiple channels, including social media, phone, and email, making it easier for people to book appointments and engage in upcoming events that are scheduled. Secondly, the acknowledgement of the Aboriginal culture and language is shown through the program's website of having an acknowledgement of country when it opens. It is also evident that Aboriginal leaders are training their staff to conduct sessions with respect, understanding, and having cultural awareness, as it is an Aboriginal community based program. Thirdly, the program addresses the social determinants that are promoted in the centre and programs, but it is also demonstrated on the Balit Durn social and emotional well-being wheel, which has been shown earlier in the presentation. Lastly, it promotes Aboriginal leadership and collaboration. This is seen through building on the advocacy and strength of Aboriginal communities and leaders, and also because it is an Aboriginal-led organisation. Aboriginal team leaders work together to create a culturally safe environment, and the program relies on them for their hearings and submissions that need to be completed. In conclusion, the Balit Durn Centre that focuses on emotional and social health and well-being stands important for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in Victoria. By offering a wide range of culturally safe programs and support sessions, the centre creates a space where the community can connect and heal. It is not only about social and emotional health and well-being, but also finding the sense of belonging that the Aboriginal community once had. This work is helping to heal the pain caused by colonization and breaking the pattern of trauma that has been passed down through generations. It's giving people the chance to feel strong again and to find hope for a better future.